हरिबोल।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय।
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय।
देवकी नंदनाय च।
देवकी नंदनाय च। नंदगोपकुमाराय।
गोविंदाय नमो नमः।
गोविंदाय नमो नमः।
नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं
नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
नरं चैव नरोत्तमं
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यास
देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यास
ततो जयमुदीरये।
ततो जयमुदीरये।
नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु
नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
नित्यं भागवत सेवया
भगवति उत्तमश्लोके
भगवती उत्तमश्लोके
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी
भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी।
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
कृष्णाय
देवकी
वासुदेवाय।
नन्दनाय च
देवकी नन्दनाय च।
नन्दगोपकुमाराय
नन्दगोपाकुमाराय।
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः।
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः।
Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 2, Lord in the Heart. Text number 35. भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु
भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु
लक्षिता स्वात्मना हरिः
रक्षिता स्वात्मना हरिः
दृश्य बुद्ध्यादिर्द्रष्टा
दृश्ये तां
लक्षणैरणुपाकैः
लक्षणैः
भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु
भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु
लक्षिता स्वात्मना हरिः
लक्षिता स्वात्मना
दृश्यैर्बुद्ध्यादिभिर्द्रष्टा
दृश्ये बुद्धि आदिप्रशस्तां
लक्षणैरणुमापकैः
लक्षणैरन्मापकैः
भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु
भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु
लक्षिता स्वात्मना हरिः
लक्षिता स्वात्मना हरिः
दृश्यैर्बुद्ध्या आदिभिर्द्रष्टा
दृश्यैर्बुद्धि आदिभिर्द्रष्टा
लक्षणैरनुमापकैः
लक्षणैरनुमापकैः भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु
लक्षिता स्वात्मना
हरिः
दृश्यैर्बुद्ध्यादिभिर्द्रष्टा
लक्षणैरनुमापकैः
भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु
भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु
लक्षितः स्वात्मना हरिः
लक्षितः स्वात्मना हरिः
दृश्यैर्बुद्ध्यादिभिर्द्रष्टा
दृश्यैर्बुद्ध्यादिभिर्द्रष्टा लक्षणैरनुमापकैः भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु लक्षितः स्वात्मना हरिः दृश्यैर्बुद्धि आदिभिर्द्रष्टा लक्षणैरनुमापकैः
भगवान् सर्वभूतेषु
सर्वभूतेषु
लक्षिता स्वात्मना हरिः
लक्षितः स्वात्मना हरिः दृश्यैर्बुद्धि आदिभिर्द्रष्टा लक्षणैरनुमापकैः
Bhagavan,
भगवान
the Supreme Personality of the Godhead,
the Supreme Personality of Godhead,
Sarva,
सर्व
all, Bhuteshu,
भूतेषु
in the living entities,
the living entities
Lakshatai,
लक्षितः लक्षितैः
invisible, is visible,
is visible
Swa Atmana,
Atmana
along with the self,
along with the self
Harihi,
Harihi,
the Lord,
the Lord
Drishay,
Drishyaihi,
by what is seen,
by what is seen,
Buddhi Adihi,
Buddhi Adibihi,
by intelligence,
by intelligence,
Drashta,
Drashta,
one who sees,
one who sees
Lakshanaihi,
Lakshanaihi,
by different signs,
by different signs,
Anumapakaihi,
Anumapakaihi,
by hypothesis.
by hypothesis.
Translation and purport by the Seven Divine Grace of Acharya Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. The personality of a Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is in every living being, along with the individual soul. And this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. Purport. The general argument of common man is that since the Lord is not visible to our eyes, how can one either surrender unto Him or render transcendental loving service unto Him? To such a common man, here is a practical suggestion given by Shukadeva Goswami as to how one can perceive the Supreme Lord by reason and perception. Actually, the Lord is not perceivable by our present material eyes or senses. But when one is convinced of the presence of the Lord by a practical service attitude, there is a revelation by the Lord's mercy. And such a pure devotee of the Lord can perceive the Lord's presence always and everywhere. He can perceive that intelligence is the form of direction of Paramatma, plenary portion of the personality of the God. The presence of Paramatma in everyone's company is not very difficult to realize, even for the common man. The procedure as follows. One can perceive one's self-identification and feel positively that he exists. He may not feel it very abruptly, but by using the little intelligence, he can feel that he is not the body. He can feel that the hand, the leg, the head, the hair, and the limbs are all his bodily parts and parcels. But as such, the hand, the leg, the head, etc., cannot be identified with his self. Therefore, just as using intelligence, he can distinguish and separate his self from other things that he sees. So the natural conclusion is the living being, either man or beast, is the seer and the sees besides himself all other things. So there is a difference between the seer and the seen. How, by a little use of intelligence, we can also readily agree that the living being who sees the things beyond himself by ordinary vision has no power to see or to move independently. All our ordinary actions and perception depend upon various forms of the energy supplied us by the nature in various combinations. Our senses of perception of of action, that is to say, our five perceptive senses of one hearing, second touching, third sight, fourth taste, and fifth smell, as well as our five senses of actions, namely hands, leg, speech, evacuation organs, and reproductive organs, and also our three subtle senses, namely mind, intelligence, and ego. 13 senses in all are supplied to us by the various arrangements of the gross or the subtle form of the material energy. And it is actually evident that our object of perception are nothing but the product of the inexhaustible permutations and
Permutation.
what's that?
Permutation.
Permutations and the combinations of the forms taken by the natural energy. As this conclusive proves that the ordinary living being has a no independent power of perception or of motion, and as we undoubtedly free our existence being conditioned by the nature's energy. We conclude that he who sees spirit and that the senses as well as the objects of perception are material. The spiritual quality of the seer is manifest in our dissatisfaction with the limited state of materially conditioned existence. That is the difference between the spiritual and matter. There are some less intelligent arguments that matter develops the power of seeing and moving a certain organic development. But such an argument cannot be accepted because there is no experimental evidence that matter has anywhere produced a living entity. Trust no future, however pleasant. We scientists, they are saying that they will develop a system so that they can create human beings. But he clearly says that trust no future, however pleasant. Idle talks regarding future development of a matter into spirit are actually foolish because no matter has ever developed a power of seeing or moving in any part of the world. Therefore, it is definite that matter and spirit are two different identities. And this conclusion is arrived at by the use of intelligence. Now we come to the point that the things which are seen by a little use of intelligence cannot be animate unless we accept someone, the user or a director of the intelligence. Intelligence gives one direction like some higher authority, and the living beings cannot see or move or eat or do anything without the use of intelligence. When one fails to take advantage of intelligence, he becomes a deranged man. And so, a living being is dependent on the intelligence or the directions of the superior being. Such an intelligence is all pervading. Every living being has his intelligence. And this intelligence, being the direction of the higher authority, is just like a father giving direction to his son. The higher authority who is present and residing within every individual living being is the super self. At this point in our investigation, we may consider the following questions. On the one hand, we realize that all our perceptions and activities are conditioned by the arrangements of the material nature. Yet we also ordinarily feel and say, I am perceiving or I am doing. Therefore, we can say that material senses of perception and action are moving because we are identifying the self with the material body. And that the superior principle of yourself is guiding and supplying a- according us supplying us according to our desire. By taking advantage of a guidance of a super self in the form of intelligence, we can either continue to study or to put into practice our conclusion that I am not this body. Or we can choose to remain in the false material identification, fancy ourselves to be the possessor and doers. Our freedom consists in orienting our desires either towards the ignorant material misconception or the true spiritual conception. We can easily attain to the true spiritual conception of recognizing the super self, that is Paramatma. What? क्या हुआ? Speculation of conception by recognize the super self, that is Paramatma, to be our friend and guide, and by dovetailing our intelligence with the superior intelligence of Paramatma. The super self and the individual self are both spirit, and therefore the super self and the individual self are both qualitatively one and distinct from the matter. But the super self and the individual self cannot be on an equal level because the super self gives direction and supplies intelligence, and the individual self follows the direction, and thus action are performed properly. The individual is completely dependent on the direction of the super self because in every step the individual self follows the direction of the super self in the matter of seeing, hearing, thinking, feeling, willing, etc. So far as common sense is concerned, we come to the conclusion that there are three identities, namely matter, spirit, and super spirit. Now, if we go to the Bhagavad Gita or the Vedic intelligence, we can further understand that all three identities, namely matter, individual spirit, and the super spirit, are all dependent on the Supreme Personality of a Godhead. The super self is a partial representation and plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of a Godhead. The Bhagavad Gita affirms that the Supreme Personality of a Godhead dominates all over the material world by his partial representations only. God is great and he cannot be simply an order supplier of the individual self. Therefore, the super self cannot be a full representation of the Supreme Self, Purushottama. the absolute personality of a Godhead. Realization of the super self by the individual self is the beginning of self-realization. And by the progress of such realization, one is able to realize the supreme personality of a Godhead by intelligence. By the help of authorized scriptures and principally by the grace of the Lord. The Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary conception of the personality of a Godhead Sri Krishna, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the further explanation of the science of Godhead. So if we stick to our determination and pray for the mercy of the director of intelligence sitting within the same body tree, like a bird sitting with the another bird, as explained in the Bhagavad Upanishads. Certainly, the purport of the revealed information in the Vedas becomes clear to our vision, and there is no difference in realization the Supreme Personality of a Godhead Vasudeva. The intelligent man, therefore, after many bursts of such a use of intelligence, surrenders himself at the lotus feet of Vasudeva, as confirmed by the Bhagavad Gita 7.19. Bhagavan sarvabhuteshu lakshita swatmana harihi drashta bruddhya adibhi drashta lakshanair anupakaihi. The personality of a Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is in every living being along with the individual soul. And this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence. तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्दे श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं वर्जनसीदं कृष्णचैतन्यं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् विष्णुपदाय कृष्ण कृष्णाय श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी के नाम। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशकाल वंशा कल्पतरुश्च कृपा सिन्धुदेव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम हरे राम। Sukadeva Goswami is clearly indicating that through our material senses it's not possible for us to see the super cell or a super soul in our body. Even with the material senses, we can't see ourselves. And what to speak of seeing the Supreme or super soul in everyone's body. As discussed in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, who can see the Supreme Personality of God? Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita. The person who has conquered his mind can see the Supreme Personality of God, who resides in the heart as a super soul. But general mass of people they try to perceive the transcendental things through their material senses, which is not possible. Unless and until one purifies his own consciousness, it's very difficult to understand the transcendental knowledge and the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of the Godhead, and then the realization of Supreme Personality of the Godhead. But still it is said, through the buddhi, through the proper intelligence and mapaka. Mapaka means evidences or the parameter through which we can understand the Supreme Soul. As one can distinct himself from the body, as Prabhupada makes us clear that if some person who is practicing and progressing in the spiritual life, he has understanding of that he is not the body but spirit soul. And in that neophyte stage also, if someone hears from that person, then he also comes to the point of understanding that he is different from his hands, eyes, nose, ear, head, etc. And he is a pure, and he is a soul, which is distinct from this material body. In the same way, we can understand that there is someone who is just next to me sitting in my heart. And as explained in Shvetashvatara Upanishad, that Dvavriksha, on one branch of a tree, there are two different birds they are sitting on. And one bird is enjoying the fruits of that tree, the other bird is just looking at him. And as Prabhupada explains about this particular verse, the other living entity who is, or that bird who is busy with eating the fruits or whatever on that trees, then he totally neglects the person, which is Supreme Personality of the Godhead, who resides in the heart as a super soul. Because of his grossly attachment and involvement in a sense gratification, even his intelligence also gets covered with that, and he is not able to make difference between himself and super self or Paramatma. Because there are 13 things or 13 senses through which we try to perceive things of this material world. We try to acquire knowledge of the things in this world. And being these senses are incomplete and imperfect, and they need some help from the external through which they can perceive things. Like if you want to sense something, then you need to have the circulation of air in your hand. If it is not there, then you can't sense anything. Do you have any experience like that? Like sometimes when you slip on your shoulder, then what happens?
I'm not able to lift. Well, even if I lift, it is hand will fall on it.
Because there is the air which flows that gets somewhere stuck up, and you won't feel any sensation there. Same way, if you want to see something, you may have eye, but your eyesight depends on what? Light. You have your eye, but if you have a sight also. But if there is no light, you can't perceive anything. Same with the tongue. If you have lot of chilies, and if something mild with this chilies has given to you, you won't feel taste of chili in that particular item. Same with the sweets. If you have eaten already something sweet, on top of that, if you are eating some other sweet, then you will not get the particular taste of that sweet. Because our senses, Prabhupada says very boldly that what's the particular word he used? Blunt. They have become blunt. So they are no more useful to perceive things which are beyond the material perception. And soul, which is there in your heart, how you can see that soul? The procedure has explained in Bhagavad Gita, in the 6th chapter. That you have to go through the whole process of Ashtanga Yoga. And the ultimate destination is to see that super soul in your heart. But here Prabhupada says that you can understand that super soul by rendering devotional service. The presence of the Lord by a practical service attitude. There is a revelation by the Lord's mercy. As Rupa Goswami Pada explains that Rishikena Rishikesha Sevana Bhakti Roshate. If you serve their Lordship with your senses, then with the help of devotional service, you will be able to perceive the Supreme Personality of God. Sevan Mukhehi Jivado Swayam Eva Spurati Adaha. Sevan Mukhehi Jivado. If you start serving the Lordship through your tongue, then He Himself reveals you. Atha Sri Krishna Namadi na bhavet grayam indriyai. Sevan Mukhehi Jivado Swayameva Spuratyata. Atha Sri Krishna Nama Aditi. Lord Himself and His holy name can't be perceived through our blunt senses because they are imperfect. So to understand the perfect, you need to purify your senses. As we have discussed in previous verses, that when someone practices Ashtanga Yoga, then he conquers his mind, then he conquers his gross senses, and by conquering that, he gets on the platform where his mind will never get attracted to the material sense gratification. And then there is chance for that person to perceive the super soul. Then Prabhupada tries to make us clear about what is the power of seeing and knowing anything in this world. Is also depend upon the Supreme Personality of a Godhead. As it is explained in Bhagavad Gita, there are three doers. One is living entity himself. Second thing is this material nature. And third is Paramatma. And Paramatma, he is a sanctioner. He allows to do that thing. And where he allows to do that thing? In the material world. And that's why anything is performed or any action has done, it needs to have indulgence of these three things. Either material elements, either the individual living soul, or Supreme Personality of God. Absence of any of one will not give success to that particular activity. And here, Shukdev Goswami is trying to make us clear about perception of the Lordship in the heart. Even though he has explained it nicely, clearly he has given indication. But ultimately he says that it's with the devotion only that one can understand that. Drishya buddhir adivi drashtaha, the person through his intelligence who can become self-controlled, can perceive the Supreme Personality of a Godhead. As yesterday we have discussed, that mind is so obstinate, stubborn,
turbulent.
he is flickering, very strong, very strong.
Restless, temple.
Yeah, that is flickering. And what else? If that is not your friend, then it will destroy your existence. It will be difficult for us to perceive anything which is beyond this material nature. And that's why in previous verses it is explained. As long as the person and his consciousness never gets purified from the thoughts of material enjoyment in this material world, he can't perceive the Supreme Personality of God. And for that, Prabhupada says here, realization of super self by the individual self is beginning of self-realization. In Bhagavad Gita, he says the first step of self-realization is that one should understand that he is not a body but spirit soul. In the verse of the Hinosmin Yata Dehe Kaumaram Yavanam Yaratata Dehandar Praptil Tirastha Pranamayati. In the translation, in the purport of this verse, Prabhupada explains about the first step of realization, the first step of self-realization is to understand we are not this body but spirit soul. One is able to realize the Supreme Personality for Godhead by the intelligence.
By the intelligence.
Through intelligence means theoretically he can understand the Supreme Personality of a Godhead. But practically, if you want to understand him, in the above paragraphs, Prabhupada said that you need to render a devotional service. Otherwise, it's not possible. And that we can see. Even Lord is present in front of you, but if you don't have a service attitude for him, you will not recognize him. And what is the example for that? Or any materialistic person who has a desire for sense gratification, he will not see their Lordship, even though Lord himself comes and stands in front of him. Who can see the Supreme Personality of a Godhead? And whose eyes are anointed with the love of God. Such a people, at each and every step, can see the Supreme Personality of God. And that's who says? Brahma, in Brahma Samhita. In the sequence of explaining the verses, he first explains the Lord's potencies. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Vistapiti Yeva Nijarupa Kala. The Lord, he has a different potencies. Samvit, and Ladi. And the potency, the Ladini, she is so great. When one gets blessed by that potency, it becomes easy for that person to understand the Supreme Personality of God. And then in the next verse he says, who can see the Supreme Personality of God? Premanyanashwarita bhakti vilochanena santa sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shama sundaram achintya gunaswarupam Govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. I worship that primeval Lord Govinda, whom those devotees can see whose eyes are anointed with love for him. Then how to develop that love for the Lord? There is no other way. And that's why Rupa Goswami Pad says that enakena prakarena mana Krishna nivesha. Because mind is the prominent sense which keeps us away from understanding the Supreme Personality of the God. Sense, Indriya, that's the only one which is very strong. Why it is so? Because it carries the impressions of innumerable lifetimes. And sometimes we get dreams that we are in the body of tiger, or we see some elephant, or we see some different trees and creepers. It's none other than our own self who act in different places, in different forms. So when once get free from the attachment for these sense gratifying senses, then his intelligence becomes pure. And through that pure intelligence, which is none other than the Vedic intelligence, which is none other than the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, through that knowledge we can see the Supreme. And that's what is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto, that the person who follows Bhagavata Vidhi, through which he can see the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. And for that they have used word Shrute Ekshana Pantha. Means the path on which you can hear about the Lord from his pure devotees, then it becomes easy for him to see the Supreme Personality of the God. A person who hears about the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the person who is none other than the pure devotee of the Lord. After hearing from him through ears, he can see the Supreme Personality, not with eyes. That's the path as explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada clearly here says that the Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary conception of the personality of a Godhead, Sri Krishna. And Srimad Bhagavatam is further explanation of the science of God. So anybody who wants to know the Supreme Personality of a Godhead, he has to go through Srimad Bhagavatam. If he reads Bhagavad Gita, definitely he is going to get the self-realization. And that will be the first step in the God realization. As long as we don't understand who we are, it will be really difficult to understand from whom we have come and what is the sole purpose of our life. Actually, this whole canto is very technical. So while reading that or while hearing about that, most of the devotees, they fell asleep. Because it's a pure Siddhanta. And Mahaprabhu says that Siddhanta Baliya Chitte Na Kari Alas. Whenever you hear about Siddhanta, you should not sleep. Otherwise, you will sleep on the path of spiritual life. It's very essential. Even one Prabhupada disciple, he was saying, people generally who doze or sleep in Srimad Bhagavatam class. Once Prabhupada said that it's like they are having illicit sex. It's worse than that, because they are not paying attention to the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is in front of them. Because Bhagavatam is none other than who? And hearing about that or reading about that, when you feel sleepy, then that's the grossest sense enjoyment you are having in this world. Because the person who is totally absorbed in a material thoughts only can't hear, can't see about and the Supreme Personality of a Godhead himself. It becomes very, very, very difficult. That's why so many times in lecture Prabhupada repeated this particular verse, Siddhanta Baliya Chitte Na Kari Alas. If you don't understand this, because it is the further explanation of the science of God. Like if you don't know hypothesis, you will not be able to perform any practical. And if you don't do any practicals, you can't come to any conclusion. Is it possible? So this is the science of Godhead. If we take it seriously, then definitely in this lifetime you'll come back to God. And if not, and after reading so much, after hearing from so many people, still you have your own doubt about, oh, it's not practical, how we can practice. If it is not that practical, then why Vyasadeva, when he wrote this Srimad Bhagavatam, when he wrote this Srimad Bhagavatam, he said that at the stage of maturity of knowledge, he began with the explanation of Srimad Bhagavatam. After compilation of all Vedic literatures, ultimately he wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is none other than his ecstatic emotions that he got from his spiritual master, Narada Muni. Because his heart was inundated with the love of God. And that same got infected to Vasudeva. And then he started with writing this Srimad Bhagavatam. Why we doze and sleep during this? Because we are not even on the platform of knowledge. We are into gross, dark, dense thickness of ignorance. And wherever there is a ignorance is prominent, as explained in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, alasya and pramad, these are the qualities of mode of ignorance. You will feel lazy and you will do those activities which sane man can't do it. And lastly, Prabhupada says here that if we stick to our determination and pray for the mercy of the director of intelligence sitting within the same bodily tree, like the bird sitting in the another with another bird, as explained in the Upanishads, certainly the purport of the revealed information in the Vedas become clear to our vision. And there is no difficulty in realizing the Supreme Personality of a Godhead, Vasudeva. The intelligent man, therefore, after many births of such use of intelligence, surrenders himself at the lotus feet of Vasudeva, as confirmed by Bhagavad Gita 7.19. Mahatmanas tamam patam. Mahatmanas tamam patam daivim prakritim ashritaha. The person who has taken shelter of Lord's transcendental potency can see the Supreme Personality of a Godhead. And among such a person, there are few who are really able to perceive the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. Narayana Paramahansa. Kotishwari Suturlabha. The sixth canto of Bhagavatam, where that Chitraketu Upakhyan comes, there it is said that such a person who knows the Supreme Personality of a Godhead is rare in crores of people. There may be one amongst the crores who can really understand about them. There are Siddhas, there are Mahatmas, there are Siddhas, and among these crores of perfectionists, there may be a one person who can understand. Because to see Lord or feel His presence everywhere is not that easy. We may sing melodiously nice Narsimha Marti every day, But do we think about their meaning? If we really think about that meaning and try to understand that, we will never offend anyone. We'll never put any nonsense agenda about anyone. Because that will open our eyes. He says that, Ito Narsimha, Bharato Narsimha, Yato Yato Yami, Tapo Narsimha, Bahir Narsimha, Hridaye Narsimha, Narasimha Manim Sharanam. Whom I take shelter of? That Narsimha who is everywhere. Yato Yato Yami, wherever I am, he is there already. Bahir Narsimha, inside he is outside also there, and he is inside also there. Then whom we are going to cheat? Creating another one extra layer. Already there are layers of, how many layers are there? 7 or 8?
13.
These are the senses. But there are 7 layers. Saptada Prakriti, which are having a really dense thickness. As explained in previous verses, that like earth, 10 times of earth is water, 10 times of water is fire, 10 times of fire is air, 10 times of air is ether, and 10 times of ether is mind. And rather than taking intelligence, the last layer they considered as ego. It's so big to pierce that. That only can crack this ego and go further. Otherwise, just by your erudite scholarship or ritualistic performance of yagyas will not help you to do that. Other than that, that will increase again that thick layer of it. That's why it is said that it starts with the service. And service means who renders service? The person who has a service attitude. Who has service attitude? Who is humble? Who becomes humble? The person who sees that everyone is superior to him. Why? Because he realizes that my Lord is so great that whoever takes shelter of his lotus feet, what he does, he picks them up and put it on his chest. And who has taken shelter of their lordship? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, everyone who are there on this earthly planet, because this earthly planet is none other than the lotus feet of Lord. So whoever has taken shelter of this earth, whether they are devotees or not devotees, my Lord has given them shelter and he puts them on his chest. They are so dear to the Lord. That's why, and I am not. And that consciousness itself makes him humble, through which he can able to render devotion. And on the explanation of Chaitanya Shikshashtakam, Bhajan Rahasya, Sachidananda Bhaktivinoda Thakur Mahasaya says that Sri Krishna Kirtane Jadi manasa tohar. If your mind thinks that you should perform Sri Krishna Kirtan, then he said, Shari Guni Guni Hoya Karaha Kirtana. Then you have to have a four qualities. Then only you can perform Kirtan. What are these qualities? Dainya, Daya, Annemana, Pratishtha, Vivarjana. Shari Guni Guni Hoya Karaha Kirtan. If you want to do your bhajan, really if you want to do bhajan and you don't have any hidden agenda, then you need to have this four qualities. Dainya, you should be humble, considering that lower than the blade of grass. Trunadapi Sunichena. That is Dainya. Daya, you should have compassion for other living entities, like a tree. When someone comes to cut that also, he gives shelter. That's compassion. Anneman. Amanina manadena. You should give respect to everyone. All living entities, whether they are devotees, non-devotees. Because here it is not said only devotees should be honored. It said Annema. Anya means everyone. And Pratishtha Vivarjana. And tendency to get honor for ourselves. That is Puja Labh Pratishtha. If you get rid of that, then it's possible. Otherwise, by birth, someone says, oh, I'm great, so everyone should worship me. Or I'm an administrator or manager, so they should follow me. Because in devotional life, what works is humility. At least to manage Gaudiya mission, you won't need managerial skill what are required in the material world. You need the humility. Because that gives the transparency of heart. And that gives the transparency of thoughts. If your heart and thoughts are clear, vision is clear. Otherwise, everything is black. It's not big deal that being a leader of few devotees. It's not a great thing. Because when we fall down in this material world, we were the Brahma, the controller of whole universe. As compared to this, this is what? Nothing. Not even one spark of somewhere. If you try to find it out on the map of world. What's the area of size and population? As we discussed yesterday, if you think in that manner, farthest vision, then you will come to know how small we are. And that consciousness itself makes us humble. And through that humility, then it's possible to render devotion. Otherwise, as we read yesterday, it's invalid. It's useless. What you do. So let's try and pray for each other and try to follow what Prabhupada expected from us, which will definitely keep us on the path, keep us on the track, so that we can make our spiritual progress and go back to God. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki.
It's the first time I chanted.
Sorry?
It's the first time I chanted Hare Krishna since that day. I was not able to move my hand. And I get up because something happened really. That's the first time I called her. All the minutes I got arrived. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And we thought something happened, it will not work further like that. And I chanted.
So there was humility, compassion,